He didn't just break up with her, he escaped.
This guy is such a good guy, man. He is one of the nicest guys, man. I met his father. You know, I've set up with him, we've talked for hours. I just can't find nothing wrong with him.
Steve Harvey publicly adored this man, called him one of the nicest guys he'd ever met, sat with his father for hours, couldn't find a single flaw. So why? The moment Michael B. Jordan started dating his daughter, did everything flip?
I've never seen that picture before. Very uncomfortable with that picture right there.
That's not a protective father. That's a man who's been told how to feel. And then this.
I would have to say so far, man.
A man who loved Michael B. Jordan suddenly can't answer a basic question without short-circuiting. Something or someone got in that man's ear. And now, Michael B. Jordan is done being quiet about it. This wasn't just a breakup. This was a trap, a carefully constructed, years-in-the-making marriage trap, orchestrated by one of the most calculated women in Hollywood. And Michael B. Jordan says he almost fell for it. He's calling it the biggest bullet he ever dodged, and he's finally telling us exactly how close he came to never getting out. Let's rewind. Because to understand how the trap was laid, you need to understand who was laying it and how long she'd been doing this exact thing. Marjorie Harvey, wife number 3 to Steve Harvey, stepmother to Lori, and according to sources close to Michael B. Jordan, the real architect of everything that went wrong in that relationship. Now here's the thing about Marjorie that most people sleep on. This woman did not get to where she is by accident. She did not become the wife of one of the most famous entertainers in America through luck or love or good timing. Marjorie Harvey got to where she is because she is extraordinarily good at reading powerful men, figuring out exactly what they want, and positioning herself and the people around her to give it to them. And Michael B. Jordan? He was the most powerful, most eligible, most desirable man Lori Harvey had ever brought home. Of course, Marjorie had a plan for him. Sources say that from the very beginning of Michael and Lori's relationship, Marjorie was involved in ways that went far beyond normal parental interest. We're not talking about a mom checking in on her daughter's happiness. We're talking about active management, strategic involvement. Sources close to Michael say that Marjorie essentially treated the relationship like a business acquisition, and the goal was marriage, a ring, a legal binding. Michael B. Jordan permanently attached to the Harvey family name. And why wouldn't she want that? Think about what Michael B. Jordan represents. A-list actor, producer, business mogul, worth hundreds of millions, young, handsome, universally respected. If Lori locked that down, if Marjorie could maneuver that into a marriage, the Harvey family's legacy, their brand, their social capital would skyrocket to an entirely different level. This wasn't about love, this was about leverage. And Michael B. Jordan, who by all accounts is a genuinely good, emotionally intelligent man, started noticing things, little things at first, things that felt off, things that made him uncomfortable in ways he couldn't immediately articulate. But before we get into what he noticed, we need to talk about what was happening behind the scenes, because that's where the real story lives. See, people look at Marjorie Harvey and they see a glamorous woman, gorgeous, well-dressed, living her best life on somebody's yacht somewhere in the south of France. And that image, that's intentional. That's the brand. That is a carefully constructed public persona designed to make sure that nobody asks too many questions about where she came from and how she got here. But Michael B. Jordan did his homework, and sources say that the more time he spent around that family, the more he started digging into the history, the more the picture became very, very clear. Here's what you need to know about Marjorie Harvey. Before Steve, there were 2 other husbands, and both of those men were in the same business, a very illegal, very dangerous business. Her first husband, Jim Townsend, was a major drug trafficker. And I'm not talking about small-time operations. We are talking about a man who was moving serious weight, the kind of activity that had both the FBI and the DEA paying very close attention to everyone in his orbit, including his wife. When Jim got busted in 1992, caught trying to score 40 kilos, Marjorie was pregnant with their second child. And here's where it gets interesting. The FBI and DEA were not convinced she was innocent. They believed she was involved, they were watching her. But somehow, Jim took the fall alone, cut a deal, left her out of it entirely, and ended up sentenced to life in prison. And what did Marjorie do? She visited faithfully, stayed loyal for exactly 5 years. Then she filed for divorce while he was still sitting sitting in that cell and moved on to her next husband. Now, this is where the story gets almost unbelievably wild, because her second husband, Darnell Woods, was allegedly Jim's cousin. She married the cousin of the man who was rotting in prison, partly because he took the fall for her. And Darnell, also a dealer. Same business, different name. And then, when Darnell also got busted, the FBI and DEA came sniffing around Marjorie again. Second time, same woman, same investigators scratching their heads, and once again, she walked away clean. Not charged, not convicted, free. Now you tell me, is that luck? Or is that someone who is exceptionally skilled at surviving, manipulating situations, and making sure that no matter what happens, they land on their feet? Michael B. Jordan is someone who does his research, and sources say that when he started fully grasping the depth of Marjorie's history, the kind of person she had been, the way she had operated her entire life, something clicked. Because the tactics she used on those two husbands, the control, the calculation, the way she always made sure she came out on top. He was seeing those exact same patterns playing out in real time in his relationship with her daughter.
You sit in shit too long, it stops smelling. So come the fuck out of there.
That clip right there. Let that sink in. Because that is a woman publicly taunting her daughter's ex-boyfriend on social media. Not a private conversation, not a quiet word of support to Lori. A public post, designed to humiliate, designed to signal to the world and to Michael exactly where the power sat in this situation. That's not grief. That's not a protective mother. That's someone who is furious that their plan didn't work. So here's where we get into what Michael B. Jordan is now saying. For years, the public story was simple. Michael and Lori dated. Things got complicated. They broke up. He shaded her on SNL. She posted a dump him graphic. Moving on. Sources say Michael has described that relationship, and particularly in its later stages, as feeling less like a romance and more like a carefully managed production, where every step toward commitment, every conversation about the future, every milestone in the relationship was being quietly steered, not by him and Lori, but by Marjorie. Think about the timeline. Michael and Lori started dating in late 2020, and almost immediately, unusually fast, the relationship became extremely public and extremely serious. And sources say that pace, that urgency, that wasn't organic, that was orchestrated. Marjorie apparently had a very clear vision of how this was supposed to go. The public appearances were carefully chosen. The narrative was being shaped. Lori's entire public image during that relationship shifted toward positioning her as a woman, ready for a serious, committed future. And the closer things got to feeling like engagement territory, the more pressure sources say Michael could feel being applied from the outside, not from Lori herself, from the woman behind Lori. Now here's what makes this even more pointed. Remember Steve Harvey's bizarre reaction when he was asked about approving a potential marriage?
I would have to say so far, man.
That reaction right there is not a man who dislikes Michael B. Jordan. Remember, Steve Harvey loved Michael B. Jordan, called him one of the nicest men he'd ever met, sat with his parents, couldn't find a flaw. This is a man who, before Marjorie got in his ear, would have probably been thrilled to have Michael B. Jordan as a son-in-law. So what changed? Sources say the answer is exactly what Michael B. Jordan suspected. Marjorie wanted control over the marriage process. She wanted to be the one pulling the strings, deciding when, how, and on what terms a proposal would happen. And Steve, who by all visible evidence does whatever Marjorie tells him to do, was reflecting her ambivalence back to the public. Not because he had a problem with Michael, but because Marjorie was playing a longer game, one where she controlled the timeline. And Michael B. Jordan, who is not a naive man, saw it. He could see that the relationship he was in was not really a relationship between two people. It was a negotiation, and Marjorie was the one sitting across the table with the terms. Sources say he began to pull back, started creating space, started paying attention to the moments when Lori's opinions seemed less like her own and more like talking points she'd absorbed from her mother. He started noticing how Marjorie would insert herself into decisions that had nothing to do with her, how information Michael shared privately with Lori would somehow find its way back around to him through other channels. And then, the thing that reportedly made it crystal clear. Sources close to Michael say there came a moment, and we won't get into the specifics because they haven't been fully disclosed, where the pressure around commitment became impossible to ignore, where the trajectory of where this was all heading became undeniable. And Michael realized that if he stayed, if he let himself be carried along by the momentum of this relationship and the machine running behind it, he was going to end up at an altar, not because he'd chosen it freely, because it had been arranged for him. Now, here's where the receipts start piling up. Because if what Michael is saying is true, that this was a trap, that Marjorie was the architect, that the whole thing was engineered, then the behavior after the breakup tells you everything you need to know. Think about how the Harvey camp responded when things ended. First, Lori posted that dump him graphic. Okay, breakups are emotional. People post things. Fine. Post. But then Steve tweeted, "Love yourself, my G." Directed at whom exactly? At his daughter? Or is he signaling to the public that Michael B. Jordan was the problem? That's an unusual move for a father who used to sing this man's praises.
This guy is such a good guy, man. He is one of the nicest guys, man. I met his father. I've set up with him. We've talked for hours. I just can't find nothing wrong with him.
That same man was suddenly on the dump him side of the internet. You don't just flip on someone you called one of the nicest men you've ever met, unless someone changed your mind for you. And then there was Marjorie's best friend, Lisa Ray, going on her podcast Cocktails with Queens, and airing out extremely personal information about Michael's previous relationship, claiming he was still hung up on his ex, implying he wasn't emotionally ready, none of which Lori had said publicly, none of which Michael had confirmed.
I heard about his ex, and him was so serious that he may have missed her.
Now ask yourself, why is Marjorie's best friend on a podcast talking about Michael B. Jordan's emotional history? Where did she get that information? Who told her? And why was that information being pushed into the public narrative? Because a trap that doesn't close still needs a story. If Michael escaped, if he got out before the ring was purchased, before the proposal happened, before the marriage was locked in, then the next best thing is damage control. Make him look like the villain. Make him look emotionally unavailable. Make it seem like Lori dodged him. Flip the script, control the narrative. Classic Marjorie. But here's the thing, Michael B. Jordan isn't some nobody who can be quietly discredited. He's one of the most respected figures in Hollywood. People know his character. People know his work ethic. People know how he carries himself. And the more the Harvey camp pushed the "he wasn't ready" narrative, the less it held up to scrutiny. Because the math, as they say, was not mathing. This is a man who stood at Steve Harvey's side while Steve praised him to the heavens. A man who met the parents, who committed publicly, who by all accounts was deeply invested in that relationship. And now suddenly he's the one who wasn't ready? No, Michael B. Jordan was ready. He just wasn't ready to be trapped. And here's the part of this story that doesn't get talked about enough. Because the marriage trap wasn't just about Michael B. Jordan. It was part of a larger pattern of control that sources say is quietly destroying the Harvey family from the inside out. See, when Marjorie entered Steve Harvey's life, she didn't just marry a man. She restructured a family. Steve officially adopted all three of her kids. Lori, Jason, and Morgan gave them his last name, and according to sources, began pouring his attention, his spotlight, and his public affection predominantly onto Marjorie's children, particularly Lori. Now Steve has 4 biological children of his own, 4 kids who watched their father adopt a new family and in many ways redirect his public identity around them. And sources say that tension has been building for years. There is reportedly real jealousy, real pain, real resentment lingering among Steve's biological kids, fueled by watching Lori in particular become the face of the Harvey family's glamour and legacy while they stay largely invisible. And Michael B. Jordan, who spent real time around that family, reportedly saw that dynamic up close, saw how Marjorie's influence didn't just affect her own kids. It rippled out and destabilized the entire blended unit. He watched Steve bend himself in the shape Marjorie wanted, watched siblings navigate a house where the rules were different depending on whose mother you shared. Sources say Michael walked away from that relationship feeling, among other things, genuinely sad for Lori. Because in his view, Lori isn't just a woman who lost a boyfriend. Lori is someone who has been raised inside a system of control so sophisticated that she may not even fully recognize it as control. When your mother has managed every relationship, shaped every narrative, and engineered every outcome from the day you were born, that becomes your normal. That's not a criticism of Lori. That's an observation about the environment she was raised in. And Marjorie keeps winning. Steve is still completely devoted. The kids still carry the Harvey name. The family still presents a united front on social media. Yacht pictures, luxury travel, matching family photos. But behind that image, sources say the cracks are deep. And Michael B. Jordan is one of the few people who got close enough to see them, and smart enough to step back before they swallowed him whole. So where does Michael B. Jordan stand now? Sources say he looks back on that entire chapter. The relationship, the pressure, the near miss with a lifelong commitment he didn't choose freely, and he feels something that might surprise you. Not bitter, not angry, grateful. Because according to sources, he genuinely cares about Lori as a person. He doesn't blame her for the dynamics she was raised in. He doesn't hold the pressure campaign against her personally. But he is clear-eyed about what was happening. And he's clear-eyed about how close he came to being permanently stitched into a situation that was never really about him and Lori at all. He's talked privately about recognizing the signs too late, but still in time. About understanding, in retrospect, that the warm embrace of the Harvey family, the love bombing, the public positioning, the carefully managed pace of the relationship, all of it was part of a blueprint that Marjorie had been refining since long before Michael B. Jordan ever came into the picture. Because think about it, this woman built her entire life on attaching herself to powerful men at exactly the right moment. Jim Townsend was powerful in the streets, Darnell Woods was powerful in the streets, Steve Harvey was powerful in entertainment, and now Lori, the crown jewel of Marjorie's project, was standing next to one of the most powerful young men in Hollywood. Sources say Michael absolutely believes that if he had stayed, if he had let himself be maneuvered into a proposal, the marriage would have happened fast. It would have been publicly celebrated, and it would have been entirely on Marjorie's terms. He would have been the newest powerful man folded into the Harvey empire. Another name, another resource, another piece on the board.
You sit in shit too long, it stops smelling. So come the fuck out of there.
And I want you to look at that clip one more time, because now that you know everything, that clip reads completely differently. That's not a woman posting a cute savage meme after a messy breakup. That's a woman who is furious that her plan didn't close. That is someone who spent years cultivating a relationship, steering it toward a specific destination, and watched it walk out the door before she could lock it in. Michael B. Jordan is one of the most self-aware, emotionally grounded men in Hollywood. The man literally trained for years to embody characters with no easy answers, complicated men carrying impossible weight. He is not someone who walks away from things lightly. He is not someone who runs from commitment. He is not someone who's scared easily. And now he's talking about it, not loudly, not in interviews or press tours, but in the way that matters in Hollywood. Through sources, through the people around him, through the quiet shift in how he discusses that chapter of his life. The word mistake keeps coming up. The word trap keeps coming up. The word relieved keeps coming up. But Lori is still single, and Michael B. Jordan is thriving, moving forward, building his empire on his own terms, not as a piece on someone else's board. You know what they say, a trap only works if you don't see it coming. Michael B. Jordan saw it, and he got out. Is Marjorie Harvey a master manipulator who runs a calculated operation out of that household? Or is this Michael B. Jordan using the narrative to reframe a breakup he didn't handle perfectly? Drop your thoughts below. And if you think this is spicy, well, stay right there, because the tea I have lined up in the next video makes this look like warm water. Don't go anywhere.